In this exercise, we're going to work on our release tucks. And this pattern may look familiar to you. It may look similar to the stitched pleat. The difference between the release tucks is that the release tucks are actually sewn on the outside of the garment, although the notching and the drill hole is a little bit similar. In this case, what you cannot do, because they're on the outside of the garment, is you can't really punch a hole. So when you mark your pattern on the face side of the garment, you will need to mark it with an erasable marking tool. Some chalk or dust chalk would be great. So I'm going to get these notches punched out and drill holes punched out, and then we'll cut this out of fabric. All right, so I have my release tucks all cut out and notches are clipped, and I have the drill holes. I came back and made them a little bit larger so that I could see them, and this is an erasable pin. Now, as I mentioned before, the release tucks are actually sewn on the face side of the fabric, so I'm going to mark the face side, but because I've marked my drill holes in erasable black, I'm going to be really careful where I mark this so that I can still see my drill holes. I'll put them right there. All right, so let's have a look at the finished. And what we're going to do is basically we're sewing straight lines, and then we're going to back tack. And this would be a nice design detail. Say if this were like the bottom of a blouse with really lightweight fabric, or even as a design detail at the bottom of a pant or a skirt. That would, if it were out of a lightweight fabric, this would be a great detail. So here on these pleats, remember, we're actually going to be folding these, and we're going to be folding these wrong side together so that we see the tuck, which kind of acts like a pleat on the outside of the garment. So what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to fold this over at the pleat, and we're going to fold it over straight, and then the stitch line is going to go straight down, and this drill hole is a stitching aid, and if you look here, it's actually 1/8 of an inch away from where my stitch line is. I'm going to draw that for you in erasable pen, because these pleats are a 1/2 inch, or I keep saying pleats and I'm sorry about that. They're tucks, so this tuck, now remember, as we did for the pleat that is like this, I know I'm confusing you even more, I'm going to stop 1/4 inch below that. So I'm just going to mark here. So this is my point where I'm going to actually stop and back stitch, right? So I made a point in making sure that you're marking with erasable pen or dust chalk, something like that, that will go away once you iron. So I'm going to form these tucks and then stitch straight down, and then I'll back stitch. And then all of this fabric at the underneath that will be what we call the release. So if I do that, let me go ahead and pin this, and then I'll fold the other one really quickly so you can see it. The other thing that you might notice is that we see the stitching. So some designers may like a contrast stitch color, or you want the stitching hidden so it looks like it's a magic little tuck. And again, the fabric is going to be on the outside, matching this pleat, this notch here, for keeping the fabric very straight. And then there's my drill hole or mark for me to stop 1/4 inch past that and back stitch. All right, so let's do this first one, and then I'll guide you through the process in the machine. Okay, so we're ready to sew our release tuck, and we've drawn the line here and where we need to stop. And we've just done that for the first one. The other two we're going to do by eye. So here it is. My line is up here right at the notch, and so that's where we're going to make sure that the needle goes. But also, we know that this is a 1/2 inch. Just for this exercise, it's a 1/2 inch, but not all your release tucks will actually be a 1/2 inch. But we can actually line that folded edge up right here on our 1/2 inch guide on our throat plate if we need to. But I'm going to trust the notch at this point, and I'm going to put the fabric right up under the presser foot, and I'll put the needle down right on that line, on that notch. And I'm using our regular stitch length, which is 12 to 14 stitches per inch. I'm going to back tack at the beginning, and then I'll back tack at the end. Quick back stitch, and then just follow along that line or watch your 1/2 inch guide right here. And notice again, we're passing our drill hole, which is 1/8 of an inch away from our stitch line. We're coming up to the end here, so I'm going to get ready to back stitch. If you need to, if you're not sure you're going to hit that right, you can of course turn the hand wheel manually, put the needle right down. I don't know if you can see that. Right down and where you need to stop. And then of course, then you can back stitch a couple stitches. And I'll do one more forward just to make sure that it is tacked there. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this out now. Clip your threads. And there's our completed release tuck, right? And the fabric releases underneath that tuck. So let's go ahead and try these other two. I'm going to again fold up here at the notch, making sure everything is even, and I kind of pre-creased that. You can kind of see I pre-creased that with my finger just to help me out a little bit. And of course, it's just the 2 layers that are folded over. Make sure you don't get your other fabric in there as well. And we're going to do this by eye. I'm going to start here at the notch, just like I did before, but I haven't drawn my line. Put this fabric in there. That's right where the needle is. I'll put the needle down. And again, I'm actually just going to be running this folded edge right on that 1/2 inch because we know they're 1/2 inch. And if you look, if you kind of eye it, I'm going to use my snips here. If you kind of eye where your needle is to where the drill hole is, you should kind of see that your line to your needle is actually 1/8 of an inch away from that drill hole, straight up, right? So I have it perfectly aligned. So now all I have to do is straight stitch. So I'm going to start with a back stitch. And then I'm just going to continue watch this drill hole, making sure that I'm sewing a very straight line, keeping the width of that tuck the same, and I stitch right past that hole. And I'm going to stop here for just a sec, put the needle down, and I'm going to lift up this presser foot so you can see where the drill hole is here. So it's right there. That's where I've stopped. Now I need to stitch 1/4 inch past that to actually stop. So I'm actually just going to stitch probably 3 to 4 stitches. And I'm going to back stitch, right? And I know that was pretty quick, but once you get the idea of stopping past that drill hole, you will learn what your 1/4 inch is about. Now, if we have a look at that, do those look pretty even? They're pretty even. If we took a ruler, we might see just a little bit of a difference. So it's okay if you mark 1/4 inch past that drill hole if you need to. But try practicing sewing this very straight line. Let's do the last one. Again, I'm folding, making sure everything looks nice and flat, and then it rolls nicely here on that folded edge. I'm going to start again up at that notch, needle right at that needle. Again, I'm going to try to keep everything lined up here. Needle looking just past my drill hole. And I'm going to start with the back stitch. I'm not going to stop here this time. I'm going to go all the way through and do it. Now, if you look at your previous one, you can keep an eye out to try to stop right exactly at the same length or height that you stopped before. So I'm going to go ahead and do this in one swift sewing movement. Got to get ready to stop and backstitch. And what I did, I looked at the previous stopping point of this previous stitch, and that's kind of where I kind of eyed where I needed to stop. And those look actually, all three of them, if we pull this out, kind of look at these, they all look pretty even, and that's what we're looking for, right? The precision. In this exercise, we're going to work on some graduated release tucks, or you may also call them release pleats. So we have some notches here and we have some drill holes, and notice that the drill holes here are at different levels. So this is what I mean by graduated. We're going to end the stitching on the release tucks at different stages, and this can just be a design detail. We've seen these a lot this season. In any case, I need to actually punch my notches and my drill holes really quick. And just like the release pleats before, we're going to match the notches. We will stitch down on one side. We'll stitch down one side of that tuck, and we'll end a 1/4 inch past the drill hole. So I'm going to get this all cut out and marked up, and then I will come back and talk to you about the stitching. Okay, so now that I have this all cut out, as you may recall, tucks and pleats are done on the outside of the face side of the garment. So I'm going to mark with my pen the face side, and I'm going to be very careful that I still can see where my drill marks are so that I don't get accidentally hide one of them. Especially since they're both in black. So now I'm going to match my notches. And when I match the notches to create the tuck, the drill hole should be on the visual side of where I'm sewing so that I know to sew a 1/4 inch past. So let's go ahead and fold this. I'm going to fold to match these notches, making sure that everything is straight. And I'll go down and I'll fold everything nice and flat. And you see here I have the drill hole, which is right here. And it's on the sewing side, so it may be hard for you to see because of the way I've got this turned. So I'm going to be looking at it. I'm going to be putting it in the machine this way. See where my hand is? So actually for you, if you put it in the machine this way, you would be stitching down, and then you're going to end a 1/4 inch past that. And then you're going to backstitch. We're not going to go across. We're just going to go straight down and backstitch. So I'm going to draw that line for you, so you can actually see what's going on. I'm going to line this up and notice that that drill hole is 1/8 of an inch away from my stitching line. And then I'm going to just draw to a 1/4 inch past that drill hole, and I'm going to stop. So now I'm used doing that with my erasable pen, so when I press it, it will come out. So now this is where I'm going to stitch to. Now you can do this for the subsequent tucks, but I'm just going to leave those bare, and we'll do those by eye, and because I want you to start getting used to what a 1/4 inch looks like, because a 1/4 inch and an 1/8 of an inch is actually going to be one of those measurements that's actually going to be very common in your sewing in your sewing future. So we're going to look at this one and say, okay, it's that far past that drill hole. So these others are going to be sewn that far past that drill hole as well. All right. So with that, we're now ready to go to the sewing machine and sew this up. Okay, so we're ready to work on our release tucks, our graduated release tucks. And the only difference between these and the other release tucks is they're, of course, more narrow. These are a 1/4 inch release tucks, and they're actually graduated. So we're going to stop at a stair, kind of like at a stair step. So they're all going to be kind of, our stopping points are going to be kind of at an angle here. So this would be a nice detail like on the front of a shirt or the front of a dress, especially if you're trying to draw interest. So we're going to fold these, and I have it already marked here for the first one. And of course, it's more narrow than the regular release tuck. So I'm just going to fold this, and remember we have our line here, and we're starting right here at the top of the notch, and then our stitch line is actually past our drill holes. And of course these are on the outside of the garment, so make sure that you haven't actually drilled a hole into the fabric. We just want to mark it with some chalk or an erasable pen. So this is where we're going to stop on this one, and then of course on the next one we're going to stop a little bit longer, and then on the final one it'll be a little bit longer, but they're all the same width. So these are all a 1/4 inch. So I'll get this folded up again, and of course since they're a 1/4 inch, it won't be too shy. We can actually use the base of the edge of our foot to actually help us guide it in there. All right, so I'm going to keep this folded. And so I'm going to get this into the machine at the notch. That's where the needle goes. And we're going to backstitch to begin. Just quickly. And again, we're using our regular stitch length, 12 to 14 stitches per inch. So I'll backstitch at the beginning. And then I'm going to follow this line that I've drawn, which is also right here at the edge of the foot. That's the 1/4 inch seam. And then we're coming up to the drill hole, and I'm going to stitch past that just about a 1/4 inch. So, and I've marked the end of my line so I know where that is, and backstitch. So try to do that in one slick movement. I'll pull this out, we'll have a look at it, trim these threads up. All right, so there's our first release tuck. Now we're going to actually do these without any additional drawing. We're going to do all these by eye. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold our notches together. These are a 1/4 inch after they've been folded, and we want to make sure that we're folding that fabric nice and even, because we're going to stitch, our stitch will be 1/8 of an inch away from this drill hole. So our drill hole is actually 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge, if that makes sense, because these are 1/4 inch release tucks. And I think I've got it pretty good. So again, we're going to put this into under the presser foot right at that notch clipping. I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm going to backstitch at the beginning. And I'm just going to follow that stitch line, going to eye it to make sure that my needle is 1/8 of an inch past on just on the other side of that drill hole. So up, keep sewing. We're coming up to the drill hole, so we're going to get ready to actually backstitch, and I'm kind of slowing down. I know I'm passing the hole right about now, so I'm going to backstitch. And now I can take this out. I may have been a little bit shy. I probably could have done one more stitch on that, but they're graduated, so right now nobody's going to know unless you have an opposite side that's going to be mirroring. And then I would just put a little mark where I actually needed to stop. So let's do this final one. This one is much longer, so it will take you a little bit more skill to make sure you're getting that straight stitch line. Remember, this drill hole here is 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge, and then your stitch line will be 1/8 of an inch away from that. So I've got everything, looks like it's lined up pretty good here with my notches underneath the presser foot. needle down. I'm going to start with a back stitch. And I'm going to take my time. I'm going to kind of look away from the presser foot because I'm going to just kind of eye this stitch line now, right? And keeping this 1/8 of an inch away from that. So if I kind of look exactly straight on where the needle is, and I'm also watching this stitch line here and where this drill hole is going in relationship to that stitch line. I'm coming up. I'm going to stop here just for a second just to remind you, when I see that drill hole, I'm going to get ready to backstitch as the drill hole is going under the presser foot, and I'll gauge that it's there, and now I'll backstitch. Now, of course, if you're very new to this type of sewing, go ahead and put a mark here where you need to stop and backstitch. Let me trim the rest of these up here. And so these are our graduated tucks. And as you can see, well, you can't see them really that great because I have the camera so close to the machine, but it actually would make a very nice design detail. Imagine if you had twice as many of these and they were just stair-stepped along the way. That would make a really nice design detail. So let's go over and press these.